So hey everybody, this is Eric Stark with Radio Arizona RV, and today is episode number 46, and the topic of our episode today is going to be untangling the confusion surrounding sewer hoses. And that might seem pretty simple, but actually it's a little more complex. For some people, I think they get sewer hoses, they've kind of made it a little part of their RV lifestyle where they know what they need, they know what their RV needs, they know how it works at the park, and so it's not really a big deal to them. They come in, they buy what they want, and they go out the door and they're on their way. But for others, they don't understand it. Maybe they just have never familiarized themselves with it. Maybe they're new to RVing. Maybe someone's always done it for them in the past. Maybe, a spouse did it and that spouse died and now that person's responsible for it. So it can be a little daunting. And, with the world the way it is today, there's not just one flavor of anything anymore or two flavors. And to illustrate that, if you think about going into a grocery store, you go down, let's say the liquor aisle, the vodka, there's not just one flavor of vodka anymore. There's 100 different flavors. And the same with candy. Look at M&Ms. They're not just one type of M&Ms or two types of M&Ms. There's a multiple type of M&Ms. And it's the same with sewer hoses. You have different flavors, if you will. Not that we're going to stick our tongue on a sewer hose and taste it out, but I think you get the drift here that, there's choices. There's different options. And each manufacturer, such as Volterra, they have different configurations of their sewer hoses. Same with Camco, Thetford. So it makes it a little more confusing. And then if the store has, 4 or 5 brands, that even adds to the confusion. So I'm going to try to simplify this and help you out here so you're not as naive, I guess, going into a store. So you can kind of go in with a little bit of information, even if you do a little research in advance. But, I get it. People don't all understand it, and so they need some help. It's, we all face this with certain things in our life. We need help getting through it. And a sewer hose is not complicated, but it's an important part of RVing. You have to have a sewer hose to empty your holding tank. Unless you're really old school and you really want to save some money and you want to just get a 5-gallon bucket and do it 5 gallons at a time, that's pretty interesting, but I don't think anybody really wants to do that. Even the person who doesn't want to spend any money will buy a sewer hose, even if it's the cheapest one you can get, because they realize it's a must. You got to have a sewer hose. And, the sewer hoses today, they're kind of designed different. They're designed for the RVer who's probably using it more often. Most of the brands or the types you can get are better quality than what you used to be able to get. Years ago, 15 years ago, sewer hoses were just kind of one quality or two qualities, bad and not so bad, and then maybe good or not so good, how you want to categorize it. And they didn't come with fittings. You'd buy a hose, buy a fittings, 2 clamps, and away you go. It's changed a lot. Now you buy kits. It's just easier to buy a kit with the sewer hose with the fittings already on it. And generally, it's a good investment. Now, I'm a fan of Volterra. I think just about everything Volterra makes are pretty good products. They do make some duds here and there, just like everybody else. But overall, they make good products, and their sewer hoses fall into that category, good products. They've been making sanitation products for decades. And PrestoFit's another one who's been making sanitation products for decades. They've been around a long time. And both of them, good quality, good companies. They take care of their customers, which is you. So when you buy things, you do have a warranty. Not that sewer hoses very often get returned because of defects. I think most people throw them away and move on. They don't want to drag a sewer hose around with them. Some people do. So you can imagine what the parts counter looks like after a sewer hose gets returned, right? Slap it down and say this thing's defective and splatter everywhere. It's a sight to see. But hopefully you're not one that does that. But occasionally you will buy a $50, $60 sewer hose that has a problem. You need to return it. Well, do what you got to do. Money's money, and I understand that. But anyway, back to the sewer hoses. Now, it seems more confusing than it really is. Most of the kits these days are going to work with your RV. You buy a kit, let's say it's a 20-foot Dominator, or a 20-foot Dominator. They do have a 20-foot kit. If you have a normal RV, nothing crazy has gone on with it, and you go to a normal campground, you should be able to take that 20-foot kit, hook it up to your RV, hook it up to the ground, and be done with it. It's that simple. The confusion comes in when the RV's been modified or the RV park is an old one or you're not sure of what you need. Let me go back to the old RV park. Some old RV parks have, you just set the fitting in the ground. Some parks you screw the fitting into the ground. But ultimately, if something's going in the ground, in Valterra, Camco, Thetford, Duraflex, they all have it kind of figured out. It's not that complicated. I think we make it more complicated because we look at the variety of hoses there are. So if you haven't modified your RV and it has the regular lugs on it for a bayonet connection, which is what all sewer hoses have, it hooks onto the waste valve basically. There's a fitting on the waste valve. It pushes on and twists. That's it. It's done. Then you set the fitting in the ground, or you screw it into the ground and hook the sewer hose up to it, depending on what the RV park is. Pretty straightforward. So looking at what you have, a lot of people, from my experience, they don't really pay attention to what the park has. And then it's multiple trips to the RV store. They're confused, they're frustrated, and I get it, because you don't want to go back and forth. But the parks are pretty standard. And you might even ask them, hey, if I buy a Valterra sewer hose, will it work? Or are your sewer fittings standard? Is it a 3-inch thread? What do you have? Is it just a pipe that we set something in? But modern sewer hoses are designed to work with just about anything. And now some RVs, though, are a little bit different. They might have a black tank and a gray tank that aren't next to each other. So you might require 2 sewer hoses. One hooking up to the black tank, one hooking up to the gray tank, and then they come together into a Y. And then from that Y, you have a hose going into the ground. And that's pretty normal. That's not a big deal. Or, you can Y it anywhere you want. But basically, you're going to have 2 of them come together in a Y. And then from that Y, you have a hose going into the ground. That's a pretty common configuration when the holding tanks have separate valves. If the holding tanks share a valve right next to each other, or they dump into one fitting, the gray tank, the black tank come together into one fitting, then you just need one sewer hose that goes right into the ground. Now, the quality, too, is another issue. How they hook up is pretty straightforward. If you trust the guy at the RV store or the girl, you trust them, they should know what they're doing. They should be able to explain to you what you need as far as just your standard hookups. If you've modified it or something that is different, then all bets are off. Then you take it from there and see what you need to do to correct it. And I would highly advise making it so it's normal, the standard type of sewer hose connection. So down the road, you never have to fuss with it again. You can buy a hose, buy a fitting, and it's going to work. Now there's different qualities. Now Valterra, I think, has the highest variety of quality. There are different types of quality. They have a sewer hose called the Viper. They have the Silverback. They have the Dominator. They have the Easy Coupler system. And the order I said them is about how the quality goes, from really good to okay. Now the Viper, they say it's virtually indestructible. And it's a pretty tough hose. It's 25 millimeter. Then wrapped around the hose is a bead. For each coil, there's a bead, and the bead's 135 millimeter. So this thing's really designed to just be drug across the ground. You can step on it. There's all these things you can do to it, and it kind of goes back to its shape. It's not going to, you're not going to tear through it nearly as easy as you would any other vinyl sewer hose. And we sell a lot of the Vipers. They are more expensive. You can get up into the $100 range easy for a 20-foot sewer hose, but that's the hose, that's the fittings, that's everything you need. It's a kit. And then you're done with it. It's going to be years before you replace that unless you lose it. It's not going to last you forever, but it's going to last a long time. And then their Silverback is it's a lesser version of the Viper. It has a 100 millimeter protective ring. The sewer hose itself is almost the same. It's 24 millimeter, but that protective ring isn't nearly as much, but it's still pretty substantial protective ring around the hose. And that's where, the hoses rub through. The ring's on that spot where any sewer hose is going to run through, basically where the spring is in it or where it coils or collapses. That's it's the most exposed spot, for gravel, concrete, and that's where it'll start to leak because it rubs through there the easiest. Then they have the Dominator. Now, the Dominator's a pretty darn good hose, and it's very similar to the Camco's version of it. Camco has several different hoses, all the same style as the Dominator. They're the hoses that, you pull them apart, they stay in that position. You can bend them, twist them, and they just hold that shape. Same with Duraflex. PrestoFit has a version of it. Their Durafoam premium sewer hose. Everybody seems to have a version of this. Thetford, that's their sewer hose. The Titan is that same type of system. And looking through the catalogs, none of them list the millimeter on it. Now, I haven't checked all the packaging, but those particular hoses are the Dominator, the Camco, and Duraflex. I'm looking for the Camco name here. The Rhinoflex is the Camco one. And they have Revolution. They have different ones, but they're all very similar. And the Camco ones have different fittings depending on which one you buy, but they're very similar sewer hoses. So the Dominator, the Camco Rhinoflex, the Thetford Titan, those hoses are all very similar. They're good quality. So if you really don't want to spend the big bucks on the Viper type hose, then if you go with the Dominator, Rhinoflex type hose, the Titan type hose, you're going to spend, it's mid-range. You're not going to spend a fortune. It's not going to be the cheapest, but you're going to get a good quality hose. And if you watch out and you take care of it and don't drag it across the gravel or concrete, if you're a little conscious of it, it'll last for years. I tested one of those on my RV that was at my house in the Arizona sun. Just threw it down, left it, and it was in service for about 3 years. And that's pretty darn good. Because I've tried other hoses. Owning an RV store, I just grab something off the shelf. It's cheap. Throw it on there, but they don't last. And you do that a few times, like, wow, what a waste of money that was. So they do hold up. They work really well. But if you're really concerned about it, you can spend that extra money to get the better hose. Now, each one of these hoses kind of has their own fitting system, and that's where a little more confusion comes in. They're not interchangeable. You're not going to use a Camco with a Volterra. You're not going to use a Titan with a Camco. You're not going to use a Duraflex with a this and a that. Some portions of it might connect together, but where they have to seal, that's where the rub is. It might not seal correctly. So I recommend going with one brand and sticking with it and making that your brand of choice. And then if you need to extend it down the road, let's say you have a Titan and you have a 15-foot system and all of a sudden you need to go 25 feet. Well, you can go buy a 10-foot extension hose. Has the fittings on it, everything you need, and it goes right into line with your 15-foot hose. You don't have to change a thing. You're not buying extra fittings. You're not taking fittings out, storing them, or throwing them away. It makes it a dream. It makes it simple. And you're dealing with sewage. It's already kind of a crappy job, if you know what I mean. So you want to make it a little bit nicer, easier, and you're done with it. Although, I kind of make light of that, but, it is sewage, and you need to get it out of the RV, so it is important. But stick with one brand. And, everybody has their favorites. Like PrestoFit, they have a cool system. I'm looking at this. And I've sold it in the past, not only in my store. I sell it now in my store. I sold it when I was distributing RV parts. And it's a unique system. It's pretty simple. And it's one of these, it came about before everybody else was making kits. I'm pretty sure PrestoFit was the first guy out with a kit. And it's pretty simple. It's easy. It's straightforward. It's not confusing. And you can keep adding to it. You have to keep buying the PrestoFit brand. And, it's pretty straightforward. But it's not as popular of a sewer hose. Whatever reason, the other ones seem to sell better. And I'm not knocking the PrestoFit. Don't get me wrong here. In fact, I think all of the brands that are available, for the most part, that are in the mainstream RV stores, the mainstream catalogs available to the RV stores, are quality products. They're not junk. They, like Volterra, they do sell some low-end sewer hoses, but it's not part of the kit system. It's just a hose. And Volterra has always had different qualities, garbage, kind of like the sewer hose you get when you buy an RV. You get that starter kit. That's the cheapest possible sewer hose money can buy. The starter kit is it's a joke. And you've probably bought many RVs and got many starter kits. There's a few things in them sometimes that are good, but it's a starter kit. That's all it is. And sewer hoses are the bottom of the barrel. They want the cheapest sewer hose possible. So Volterra has always been a good provider of that cheap sewer hose, but they also make great sewer hoses, like their Viper, like I talked about. But now Volterra seems to, when they get into something, they kind of get into it all in, and they have a ton of fittings. They have fittings galore, and they've kind of been the king of different fittings for sewer hoses, emptying your holding tanks. So if you need a Y, Volterra has the Y. So you're going to want to buy one of their sewer hoses because it's going to work with their Y. And now I haven't checked every sewer hose with the different types of fittings to make sure that they aren't compatible. But the way the seals are, and kind of everybody in their proprietary mind today, they're not going to be too interchangeable. Camco has a Y as well for their Rhino Flex system. But Volterra really has it covered when it comes to fittings. And that's one of the reasons why I like Volterra. You buy the Volterra hoses, you have a great selection of fittings. You have the red fittings, which that's kind of their trademark color. And they have the clear fittings. So, hey, if you want to see, how your diet looks when you empty your holding tank, they have the clear fittings so you can get a bird's eye view into what's coming out of your holding tank. You'll see that corn's not digested. You see it all. If you don't want to see it, buy a red fitting. But, I knocked that, but really you can see if it's liquefied or not. So you can see if your holding tank product's working as well, or if nothing comes out or very little comes out. So it's not just to check your dietary, what's happening on your body there, but you can see what's happening in your holding tank. So they have the fittings, they have the selection. And that's one of the reasons why I like Volterra. Not only the quality, it's just they have the selection of fittings. And they probably have the best selection. Not probably. I'm going to say they do. And Camco has some different fittings. They have some choices there. It's not as extensive as Volterra. So, when you look at this, don't overcomplicate it. When you walk into the store, if you see that there's 3 brands, just maybe focus on a brand. Get your eyes adjusted to one brand. Ask for some help. What's the difference between these 2 brands, or these 2 hoses, these 3 hoses? Look at the price. The price is probably just going to tell you which hose is better, which hose is worse. It's pretty straightforward. It is truly one of those things, the more you spend, the better off you're going to be. You're going to get a better quality hose. And I don't want to forget Lippert Components. They have a system called the Wastemaster, and it looks pretty cool. It's what I think of is Thetford, I believe, used to have something like this. Maybe they bought it from Thetford. It's a green hose, green fitting. And if you ever been to a gas station when they're filling the tanks, you got the semi there with the big, tanks refilling the gas station. They pull out those big hoses. They're like, maybe 5 inches diameter. And they have a connector they push into the ground. It kind of fits in and locks into place. Well, that's what the Wastemaster one looks like. This is by Lippert, in case you didn't catch that. So it locks in, and it kind of makes that snug fit. And it's a nice-looking hose. It doesn't look like they have all the fittings, but maybe some of these fittings interchange with Volterra or Camco. I'm not 100% on that. But for a typical hookup system, the Wastemaster will probably work in 9 out of 10 times. So that's a pretty sure bet, and it's a nice hose, and the way it connects is pretty cool. Like I said, the way it connects to the ground is nice. Then they have another system called the flow down, which is very similar to that. It spikes into the ground to hold that in place in the sewer hose, or at the campground where it goes to where your sewer hose goes into the ground. Because that is one thing you don't want. You don't want your sewer hose to pop out of the ground connector, the ground fitting, and have waste going everywhere, especially if it's your black water and you happen to be emptying the black water tank. Gray water is a lot more palatable and easier to deal with, but black water gets really ugly. That's why most RV parks don't let you work on your holding tanks while you're there, because if something goes wrong, it gets ugly quick. Now, I've probably covered this. It's sewer hoses. You can only spend so much time on it. But just as a refresher, you have Volterra, you have Presto Fit, Camco, Thetford, Lippert Components, and Duraflex. Those are kind of your mainstream brands today. Now, whichever brand you choose, whichever brand you have, you're probably going to be okay. It's just they're the varying qualities. Like Volterra, like I said, has the Viper line. That's the high-end one. Then the Dominator and the Rhinoflex, so those are kind of mid-range, but they're good hoses. So don't throw away what you have, rush out, buy anything new. Just remember to buy what you already have. If you have Volterra, continue to buy Volterra. And you know what helps too, as I'm talking here, things come to mind, is taking pictures of your setup, maybe your RV and the park you're at. If you have problems, if you're going to go in and buy a sewer hose, take a picture of the ground connection. Take a picture of the RV. It only takes a second. We all have smartphones anymore. And then you show the parts guy, this is what I have. Oh, no problem. Then you just need to determine the length. And even a picture will help identify that hose. If the guy says, well, what brand do you have? Maybe you're trying to add on a 10-foot section. Well, you pull out a picture and say, this is what I have, because they're all their own different colors. Everybody has, their special colors to identify their brand. And then you can get what you need, and you're not buying something, trying to make it work, think it'll work, having to return it. It cuts out frustration. And I highly recommend taking pictures of everything. I've said this in other episodes. Take pictures. Pictures are worth 1,000 words, if you've never heard that one. But, you go to the RV store, not everything is looked up by your RV. So when you take pictures, there you go. There it is. Now, sometimes you might have to take some measurements as well. And with a lot of smartphones and the apps, you can draw right on that picture. So you can take a picture, do your measurements, or edit the picture with those measurements, and bam, you take it to the store, show it to the guy, this is what I have, these are the dimensions. And keeping track of stuff. So if you don't want to do that, get an app. Use Evernote or Trello, apps where you can use it on your smartphone and your computer, and keep notes of things for your RV. And the more notes you have, the better it is. I use both of those. I use Evernote for all my home type stuff. Use Trello for all my work stuff. In fact, I use it for a ton of different things. And it's internet-based, so I can do it on my computer. It goes to a website. Then I'm in a store. I need to look something up. I open up my smartphone, and bam, there it is. There's my information. It's all synced all the time. So you look a lot smarter, too, when you go to an RV store and you're all prepared. They think, wow, look at this guy. He knows what he's doing. Yeah, we got him fooled, right? No, but seriously. Use your phones. Use technology to help you. It cuts out so much frustration. I mean, everything we do with warranty anymore, we send them pictures. We take, right off of smartphones. Customers take a picture, text it to me, and bam, we forward it to Dometic, Lippert, whoever it might be. If I'm out in a store, I need to show somebody something because I can't explain it, I just show them a picture. And I take pictures of everything. Why not? They're free. We don't have to go to that drive-through Kodak booth anymore. All right, so I've pushed that. So sewer hoses, taking pictures. So that's what the episode's about today. So I hope that untangled some of the confusion. Basically sewer hoses all hook up the same if you have a standard configuration. RV parks pretty much are not identical, but the fitting that goes in the ground is pretty much all the same. There are some variations, but not much. And Volterra kind of has it dialed in, Camco, Presto Fit. So make a wise choice when you go to the RV store. Ask for help if you can't sort it out. Depending on how they have their hoses laid out, it might be even more confusing. But ask for help and figure out which sewer hose you need and buy that. And remember, if you don't need a high-quality one, don't buy it. But if you want to buy a sewer hose that's going to last you for years and years, spend the extra money. Because it all adds up. Pay that money up front. So, hey, I want to thank you for listening, and I encourage you to go to Radio Arizona RV and sign up for my newsletter. I haven't been sending any out. I'm working on it. I don't want to send out junk, but I'm going to start sending them out for new episodes, products that we're adding to our system. There's a lot of things happening all the time, and that's where the newsletter really makes it easier for me to keep you informed on what's going on. So go to Radio Arizona RV and sign up for the newsletter there. In fact, on all of our websites, you can sign up for a newsletter pertaining to each website. End of the day, though, they're all RV related websites, but we do keep them separated, and we won't send you spam. So check it out, Radio Arizona RV. And I want to thank you again for listening. And this is Eric Stark with Radio Arizona RV.